with years of consistency, incredible years of experience, over 10 wins and a numerous number of podiums, does Valtteri still have what it takes to compete at either the sharp end or anywhere within the Formula One grid? His days at Mercedes to leading the charge at Alfa Romeo, he's clearly shown that he's not just a wingman. In this video, I want to chat with you guys if Valtteri Bottas does deserve a seat in F1 and whether he should merit the only remaining seats in the 2025 F1 grid. Let's get into it. Welcome, you beautiful people. My name's Lucky. You guys know why you're here. Let's get into it. Who is Valtteri Bottas? He's 35 years old. He is Finnish. Yes, despite being Finnish, that nation has already produced numerous number of drivers and some of the most iconic drivers with 3 world champions already. His partner is Tiffany Cromwell. She is also a professional athlete. She competes in gravel cycling and is sponsored by Canyon. The Australian in him has been very much embraced over the course of the last few years, with him growing a mullet and creating and bringing a really exciting personality to the paddock. So, outside of the personal stuff, what has his Formula One career looked like? So 2012, he starts with practice sessions for Williams. He was one of the very few drivers to actually take a year out just practicing. In 2013, he was promoted to the Williams seat, and in 2013, he didn't really have much of a luck. The car was nowhere, so he couldn't really make a name for himself. But in 2014, when Mercedes brought that cracker of an engine and regulations came through, Williams established themselves as the best customer team for Mercedes. During his stint in Williams, from 2013 to 2016, he fared well against his team members and accumulated number of podiums. In 2017, he was given the opportunity to go into the Mercedes works teams and race against Lewis Hamilton. He did really well across the 5 years on a year-on-year contract basis, and he helped Mercedes grab 5 consecutive Constructors' Championships, and in certain occasions also made the tough decision of helping Lewis secure all his 4 Drivers' Championships between 2017 to 2020. And in 2022, with the change in regulations and Mercedes deciding to bring in the young gun George Russell, Valtteri moved to Alfa Romeo as the lead driver. And over 2021, 2023 and 2024, now renamed as kicksauber, Valtteri has had some success with some top 5 finishes, but over the course of this season, the car's been nowhere. He's outshone his teammate in the name of Guanyu Zhou, but he's not really had the ability to make an impact across the paddock because the car's nowhere. And that's a little bit about his F1 career so far. But what makes Valtteri a bit more interesting than just pure driving and F1? He's also extremely into gravel cycling recently, and he's competed on a fair few competitions and actually won. Seems like a natural athlete in that sense. And I think he's also into a bit of nude photography as well, where it's this exposed butt in him swimming in a river, and they exchanged this photo with Lewis. He's into some amazing advertising as well with, for example, Uber. And lately, as I mentioned before, he's also really embraced his Australian personality, right? Blonde hair with a mullet, enjoying a beer, surfing once in a while. He spends a fair bit of time in Australia as well. So he's getting out of almost the definition of what we think a Finnish driver maybe in the name of like Kimi Räikkönen, who is the Iceman, a man of few words. And that perception has changed over the course of the last few years with Valtteri embracing the Australian in him. So let's get into the meat of the video really, right? So does Valtteri Bottas deserve an F1 seat for 2025? But what do you guys think? Like, leave a comment below. Experience and caliber. He has worked across multiple constructors from the very sharp end to now the back end. So he has a wealth of experience. He's finished second in the Drivers' Championship with over 10 wins, which shows that he definitely has the speed, and his only teammate to have beaten him was Lewis Hamilton, who's a 7-time champ, right? So there's definitely not a question about how good his caliber is. Even against Lewis, he's managed to win 10 times and also out-qualify him 20 times over the course of those five years at Mercedes, where we potentially saw almost the peak Hamilton. We shall see whether there's another peak in his stint at Ferrari. If you guys are curious, I made a video about whether Lewis is, let's say, motivated or not motivated in his final season at Mercedes. And he's also acted as a leader in Alfa Romeo so far, and he's allowed that team, especially in the 2022 season, right? So where there were top 5 finishes, he's helped the team to develop the car. So he can also act in that leader capacity. So his experience is unquestioned across multiple teams. He can be a leader, and his caliber in terms of speed and the ability to win is unquestioned. So experience and caliber, tick. In terms of speed, we mentioned this before, 20 poles. When the car is right, even with the likes of a peak Hamilton, he is able to bring out a pole lap, which means the raw speed within him is definitely there. And he's definitely not knocking at the 40-year-old. He seems very fit. He consistently does ridiculous cycling runs as well. He seemed to be extremely fit in the car. He hasn't had any issues even in grueling situations like Singapore. So I don't think speed is any problem at all. And even in his stints outside of Lewis, he's consistently out-qualified and outscored all his teammates, right? So, and he's had good caliber teammates. Example, Massa outside of Hamilton, right? Who was a championship contender in 2008. Yes, the current competition may not be the best, but his past definitely shows that he is able to go toe-to-toe with the best on the grid. So, speed, tick. Last point, motivation. If he is able to bring along a car that is the last on the grid and day in, day out fight for the opportunity to gain points, I think motivation is unquestioned. And when you talk to Valtteri, he is very evidently sure about the fact that he does want to stay in the grid. Maybe Sauber or the future Audi isn't the best place for him for his last stint, but I'd rather see him on the grid than not on the grid. So motivation, I don't think is a question at all. It's another tick. He's got good experience, he's got the speed, he's got good motivation. So why not give him the seat at Sauber? We come to our last part of the video, competition. So who is competing for this seat? We have Bortoleto, who's having a cracker of an F2 season, making drives from last to first, and he has turned his championship around with Hajar, who led majority of the season as the potential winner of the 2024 F2 championship, and Matteo Bonotto, who's heading up the technical division, has been seen having multiple conversations with Bortoleto, right? So the information on the paddock seems to be that he is also in contention of that seat. Number 2, Colapinto. This is a interesting conversation. Right? Colapinto only came into the F1 conversation 3 races ago, and he's outperformed that car and next to Albon. He's driven some wonderful races. Sum equals 3, right? So James Vowles has been very vocal about the fact that he's going to work with Sauber to ensure that Colapinto might be in contention for a Sauber seat next year. So that's number 2. And there was a third piece of competition which is no longer in the equation, which is Sainz, right? So in reality, it's a 3-way fight between Bortoleto, Colapinto and Bottas. We'd probably have to think of a contract type and a fit, right? Would you do a year-on-year in a season where you potentially go into 2026 with a completely new car? And would you change the consistency of drivers, or would you have a multi-year contract so that you have some sense of continuity into 2026 with the development trajectory? Because majority of the teams would start developing for 2026 in 2025, right? Almost at the start of 2025, because it's a massive overhaul of regulations. And Audi's brand new to the sport in itself, right? So a brand new engine, brand new chassis, so they'll need to do a hell of a lot to ensure that there is consistency from now to that next season. So in terms of contracts, you definitely want to go for a multi-year contract, or at least at a minimum a 2-year contract with the driver. So ultimately it comes down to fit in terms of a 2-year contract and who sits best next to Hülkenberg, who's already signed for Audi. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I would put experience over potential novelty in the name of Bortoleto or Colapinto. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see Colapinto and Bortoleto on the grid, and that's probably another video, because I don't think that we should only have 20 race seats. If there is opportunity for other new teams to come into the grid, we should open that opportunity up. But that said, if I had a gun to my head and had to choose, who would you go with? I would go with experience and known caliber and speed. We already know that Hulk is great in a race and his speed. Now we've just discussed that Bottas is also good with speed and on a race day. So for a team that's going to be brand new to the grid, I would go with experience and pair Hulk and Bottas up. So my summary wrap up is the fact that Bottas definitely deserves a seat and Sauber should re-sign Bottas. What do you guys think? That's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace, ciao.